occupied much of my mental space for all these years, and I've never actually seen it. I have been to Petra, I've been to Jordan, but never with the intent of this. That was before I was like your wife, and I had never heard of the Copper Scroll at that point. So I've never actually been to the museum in Amman and seen the Copper Scroll, but actually have plans to this summer. So hopefully that dream becomes a reality.
Other than the Scroll Project and your book, tell me just a little bit about your life in Israel.
Sure. So I moved there in 2000. I got married. My husband, we basically got married and moved there 2 weeks later, and I was 19 years old. So this isn't something, that I think now. At the time, I thought my mom was overreacting. I felt old. I felt big. I felt like this was a really logical decision. Now I can see that it could have gone wrong in lots of ways. But in the end, I think, that is the phase of life that you're just the most malleable. And so I had moved there I lived in a small town in Louisiana, had never lived outside of the country. I can tell you now that I went there as a math and microbiology major just as an excuse. I was just looking for an excuse to study abroad. And Israel had programs that my husband and I could both go to graduate school in. And so it's not as if we were particularly interested in Israel. We were interested in just having an adventure. So I think if we had found programs, in Germany or Poland, we would have gone to those places too. It's just Israel had what we needed. And it wasn't until I got on my connecting flight from Frankfurt to Tel Aviv that I even realized Israel was a Jewish country.
Wow. Good.
As much as I hate to admit that now, but it gives me a lot of tolerance for people when they're just kind of at the very beginning of their own education about all things Israel, and especially Christians who are just learning more about the Jewish faith. And so I immediately sort of just held my breath and thought, what have we done? We're about to be a minority. And that had never occurred to me. And sure enough, we, started our programs, and we were I was the only Christian in my program. The rest were Jewish students from New York. I never just really anticipated that. And nor did I have a clue what was happening around me politically. So when we went there, the peace process was happening and in step. And within a couple of months of us being there, the second Intifada broke out, and then September 11th happened, and half of our programs got called back. We were connected to Louisiana State University, and they weren't even able to wrap their heads around, sort of the danger level or why we should or shouldn't be called back. So we stayed, and we stayed for a few years. We finished graduate school there. By the end, I dropped every math class and every science class, and I only studied Jewish studies and Middle Eastern studies. I just had to understand what was happening around me.
When's the last time you were there? What year that you were living there?
Well, so I've been 3 times this year, actually. So I still go pretty frequently for work and for other things. I've gotten involved with Yad Vashem, with Holocaust education. And so it seems like every year there's just a few times a year that I need to get back, even if it's just for 5 days or so.
Who would you love to collaborate with, and what would you collaborate on?
Ooh, well, so funny you should ask. There is a rabbi and journalist that lives in the Galilee named Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him, but he writes for Israel 365. He's a pretty active journalist, and so I would like to. So we're talking about co-writing a book together. I really love the optics of that in general. He's sort of a hippie rabbi, and I'm a Southern preacher's daughter. But the question that I keep getting, and I just can't shake it, it seems like, is, there's kind of a kooky theory that the temple wasn't actually on the Temple Mount, but it was in the city of David. It is, I don't know if you've heard of this theory, but, it's promoted by just this guy in Colorado, and you make a couple of viral YouTube videos, and then all of a sudden everyone's on board. And so it's the thing that I'm asked about the most, the thing that I get the most emails, and I'm just sensing something that's off. And the question and the people who are asking, it seems strange to me what their motivation is. So I almost care less about their argument in terms of why the city of David might have actually been the place of the temple. I don't believe that, and there are reasons why archaeologically that doesn't fit, but also just what motivates them to feel so strongly about this. And so that's something that I would like to research together with a Jewish rabbi and a Christian sort of activist, and just get to the bottom of what could possibly be like the psychological motivation for why this seems to be taking hold.
What is your current project, and what do you love most about what you currently do?
Well, I work for an organization called Jerusalem Connection. So we do Israel advocacy. We do a lot of Holocaust education, but a lot of just trying to fix the me's in the world. Like I told you that I didn't even understand that Israel was a Jewish nation. So just this understanding that a lot of Christians care about Israel and are interested in Israel and kind of want to right the wrongs of 2,000 years of Christian anti-Semitism and want to make steps towards reconciliation and repentance. And I think all of that is really valuable and worthy of my attention. And so I just try and weigh into that wherever I can. And sometimes it's through, I've done a program recently with public high school teachers that in my county in Northern Virginia, they have to teach the Holocaust in 7th and in 10th grade. And so bringing in a little bit of the Israeli teaching style for that, which is a little bit different than the Holocaust Museum here in D.C., just has a different tilt towards the end in terms of how Israel exists and I guess ending in a more hopeful way. And so doing a little bit of work in that area, but also I'm Anglican, which isn't a particularly pro-Israel crowd. And so just doing a lot more work, even denominationally than I've ever done before with the Anglican Church and Jewish groups.
Wonderful. Have you ever had a strange encounter that you can't explain?
Do dreams count?
Anything counts. No, let's talk about something you can touch and feel and see, and you were involved in.
Okay. Oh, this is tricky. Well, now I can't shake the dream because that's the thing that initially entered my head when you're asked.
Go ahead. Use the dream.
This is cheating. This is cheating. I know something else will come to me later, but immediately when because Judaism, because I'm living 4 years in Israel and having, Shabbat dinner with Jewish friends every weekend, in Israel, a cab driver will invite you over for Shabbat dinner if they find out you don't have any family in town. And so really just kind of falling in love with Judaism for all that it is, and especially the Israeli flavor of that. For a long time when I got back to the U.S., I really struggled with knowing kind of where I fit faith-wise. Just, how do I stay in the church but also incorporate Jewish sort of practices that I feel like are valuable for my faith without coming off as weird. And I was really suffering through that. I mean, it might seem kind of trivial when I say it right now, but really not knowing after living in Israel how to translate all of those lessons. And I had a dream. I'm a pastor's daughter from a small town in Louisiana, and that church was a huge source of encouragement and, warmth for me growing up. And so in the dream, but I hadn't been, a part of that church for probably 10 years once I had the dream. But I was in the lobby of that church, not going inside the sanctuary, just standing outside of it, but still feeling included and kind of just in this space of not knowing whether or not to go inside or to go outside. and an IDF soldier came up to me in the lobby and said, "You'll be safe here, but just go upstairs to the attic." And when I woke up, I was immediately just had this peace that I was supposed to stay in the church, but that I was supposed to still seek a higher form of understanding, like the course that I had been on for the previous 4 years in Israel.
Wonderful. What's the best thing about being you?
The best thing about being me? Well, if I'm ever pushed towards, I think women a lot of times have struggle, just always feeling like we're not doing anything perfectly, but just stretched a little too thin in terms of professionally and also domestically. And I have 4 kids. And so this is always a hard question because you always feel stretched too thin in every area. I feel like I have enough energy to run circles around everyone else. That ultimately, the one thing I can count on about myself is that that my energy level won't fail me.
That's great. What's your favorite word?
My favorite saying is in Hebrew, "Ze lo kakak pashut," like this is not so simple, because it almost always gets me out of, when a political conversation nosedives or a religious conversation kind of gets tense, that you could almost always end it with just "Ze lo kakak pashut," like it's not that simple. It's not that simple.
Do you have a favorite
and
word?
Everyone will bow out.
Do you have a favorite word?
Favorite word? Yeah. A favorite word would probably be togetherness.
How about least favorite?
Ooh, least favorite. Darkness. The whole Dead Sea Scrolls are based off of light and darkness. And I kind of hate Halloween. Every year, I'm not going to be the weird mom that, maybe doesn't let my kids dress up for Halloween, but I always can't wait till it's over. Just, it's not, my soul and spirit just can't really get behind it. But then come Hanukkah and come Christmas, and there's lights everywhere, and there's a celebration of light. I can't get enough of it. It doesn't last long enough. So I just really feel like, the least that we have to face darkness, the better.
What's your favorite sound?
NPR.
Your least favorite sound?
My least favorite sound would be, I would say a baby crying, but now that sounds kind of nice. Now mine are all so old that it's not. But, if a baby's crying, then they usually need me. So that's an instinctive response.
How old are your children?
13, 8, 7, and 4.
Oh, wow.
And we're actually going to Israel for a whole month this summer as a family. Yeah.
Your favorite smell?
Lavender.
Wonderful.
Because, all of that energy that I just talked about, doesn't equate to getting to sleep very easily.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. But before we go, I want you to do me and my audience a favor and tell them how they can get in touch with you if they want to speak to you or communicate, and where they can get your book.
Absolutely. Thank you for this interview. This was delightful. My email is Shelley, SHELLEY, .Neese, NEESE, @gmail.com. So email is always best because then I can get to one fire at a time. And my website is Shelley Neese, all one word, .com. The book is The Copper Scroll Project. It came out October 31st, so it's still really fresh and new, and it's available on Amazon, but also just anywhere that you buy books. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Thanks for listening to Our Town Live, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review.